All right, welcome everybody. Can't believe it's already October. Kind of crazy, but welcome to this month's meeting of the San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Commission. As we normally do, let's call this meeting to order with item 1, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Okay, let's go through roll call. Hannah, please take roll.
Yeah, Commissioner Appel is absent. Commissioner Block.
Here.
Commissioner Manna.
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez-Mitten.
Present.
And Chair Laguna.
Here. All right. Let's move to item 3, public comment. So this item is reserved for people that are wishing to address the commission on any parks related matters that are not part of the agenda. Hannah, would you mind reading the participation information?
So spoken public comment will be accepted during the meeting in person or remotely through Zoom. Public comments in person will be taken first, followed by speakers on Zoom. You'll be called on to speak by name when it's your turn. If you wish to speak to the commission in person, please fill out a speaker slip located near the conference room door. And if you have anything you wish to have distributed to the commission and included in the official record, please hand it to myself. And we'll distribute that to the commission members and staff. For the speakers on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to indicate you would like to speak for an item. When the chair calls on public comment, click on raise hand, and speakers will be notified shortly before they're called to speak. You'll be provided the ability to unmute your microphone and begin speaking. And public comment is limited to 2 minutes. And we have one speaker slip. This is for agenda item 6. So
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So 2 hands raised on Zoom for public comment. First is Burnett Silveri. Burnett, you should be able to unmute and begin speaking.
Okay, thank you. After your commission meeting in September, we sent the new commissioners our concerns about Quarry Park with supporting correspondence. So all of you commissioners would have the same background information as the concerns come up in the future meetings. The Quarry Park runoff concern that floods the surrounding neighborhood is already listed as a future agenda item. Wildfire and tree risk along the park's border is being addressed, so we'll see how that works out. As to increased neighborhood parking and traffic from increased park use, it is still a problem and needs to be addressed to make it better. We therefore request that Quarry Park parking and traffic be made an agenda item for future discussion and solution. Lastly, the off-leash dog program in Quarry Park was successfully discussed with the community in this last Mid-Coast Community Council meeting. In that meeting, Director Calderon informed us that the Parks Department had recently increased enforcement education in the park. From that, and since the program was newly approved, the outcome was for continuing review of the enforcement matter. So you should therefore also include it as a future agenda item. Thank you for your attention and service.
Thank you, Burnett. Next is Fran Pollard. Fran, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Fran Pollard, El Granada on the unincorporated Mid-Coast, and just want to welcome my new commissioner, Ms. Irma Rodriguez-Mitten, since I didn't get a chance to last month when you were introduced, and I wasn't able to get on the meeting till after you were introduced. So welcome, and I just want to let you know I live across the street from Quarry Park, and it was my community organization called Mid-Coast Parklands that created the original 40-acre community park in Quarry, which was called Quarry Park, almost 30 years ago. And we cleared the 4-acre parcel for a community park and managed and operated it for 15 years, which is why I'm so involved with it and to this day, and care about it so much. In fact, Burnett Silvera and I, Burnett who just spoke, and I sent you a write-up and pictures yesterday, which I hope you all received and saw, concerning the off-leash dogs in the little 4-acre community park. And since there is no one chairing the dog committee, I hope that you, Miss Rodriguez-Smitten, will be the new chair of the dog committee. And especially since Quarry Park is now the only county park for off-leash dogs. So thank you and welcome again.
Thank you, Fran. And that's all we have for public comment.
Okay. Great. All right. So so let's move to item 4. Just to save some time, I'll make a motion to set the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anna seconds. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yeah, Commissioner Block
Present.
and the record that Commissioner Fells here.
You can add for the record, and because this is a in-person meeting, you don't actually need to do a roll call vote. You can just call for votes if you're so inclined.
So all in favor, setting the agenda,
All right.
All right.
motion passes.
That's easier. I like that. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So so let's move on to item 5, the Parks Foundation Executive Director's Report. And I know Michelle, you weren't here last time, but would love to hear kind of what's the latest and greatest.
Sure. Michelle,
And, yeah, I don't know if you
wanted
wanna take a-
maybe stand
yeah.
closer to the back, you might be on camera there.
You have to go full
Yeah.
front and center, but yeah. However you want.
Good afternoon, commissioners, staff, and guests. I'm Michelle Beasley. I'm the Executive Director of the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. Sorry to miss last month's meeting. It was a couple days before our 25th anniversary event, so it's like the big news that I want to share. Thank you to those of you who were able to join us at Huddart Park on September 10th. We were honoring a volunteer group, a Parks Division, County Parks Division, and a community leader who embody our mission. Our mission is to inspire people to care for, learn about, and enjoy parks. So the Friends of Edgewood, who care for Edgewood Preserve, were our volunteer group. The San Mateo County Parks Interpretive Division was our county's honoree. And then for those of you who know Rafael Avendano, the Executive Director of Redwood City Together, he was our community leader. And one thing, we gave some checks out, and for the interpretive division, we sort of gave this blank check for the Memorial Park Nature Center, because we know there's now a Memorial Park specific interpretive plan. And so we're very eager to work with Catherine and her team on getting some upgrades to the Nature Center, hopefully by July. So that's the main thing that I wanted to share, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
If I can just add one thing, Michelle and the foundation threw a phenomenal 25th anniversary
Sorry,
event.
I shouldn't have missed it.
And you know, we just appreciate everything that you and the foundation are doing and the help that you're providing for the Centennial down at Memorial Park, really throughout the system, is really greatly appreciated, and especially when it comes to transportation, which is a huge barrier for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think the foundation deserves far more credit and recognition for the work you do, and Michelle, you do a phenomenal job leading. So I just want you to know how much we appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you, Nicholas. I can look. Thank you. Yeah, no, we our field trip program, and I just want to give a shout out to Adriana on my team, our program coordinator. It's our second full-time staff person, and she's doing a phenomenal job connecting people to the parks and expanding our reach to the coast and to North San Mateo County. So yeah, hiring her was one of my really good decisions. So yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just add on especially for the new commissioners. I don't know how familiar you are with Michelle, but the Parks Foundation actually does a great job extending a lot of the stuff that the Parks Department does, and you know, I think it's a really important kind of role. That's why we have her most months come up and speak here, but definitely appreciative of all the work that her and the team have been doing.
Thank you.
I'll open it up to any of the commissioners if you guys have any questions or comments on Michelle's update before we put it up for public comment?
I had just one question, very, I guess an ignorant question. If you could just describe the kind of the structure of the foundation a little bit for us, since I don't
Sure,
really
so
know the history.
we're a separate 501c3. We were formed 25 years ago by a group of dedicated volunteers who were trying to figure out how to have a dedicated source of revenue for San Mateo County Parks. So unlike a lot of our neighboring counties, the San Mateo County Parks Department is dependent on the general fund, whereas a lot of our neighboring counties either have like a property tax set aside or some ballot measure that's just for their parks. So we were formed, and so the money we raise is just for San Mateo County Parks. We have a separate board of directors, and we're a staff of 2 full-time people and half-time person. And I check in with Nicholas on a pretty regular basis.
That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Did that answer your question?
It does, gives me a
Okay.
little more.
All right.
Cool. Awesome. Any other comments from the commissioners before we open it up for public comment?
Your work doesn't go unnoticed. You gotta keep moving that needle though. You
moving
gotta
it.
keep, yeah, it's like, it's a term of, I guess, urban use. When you move the needle is when you keep, your next approach to reaching Mount Rushmore. So when you keep moving the needle, people say, wow, San Mateo County Park Foundation is a well-to-do, something not to be, don't yawn at, because they're doing a lot of work, and their innovation is gonna be, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? And you are doing a lot of next big things
Oh, no pressure. Okay,
between,
thanks.
no pressure, but just, it's, you heard it from me, keep moving the needle, meaning
you.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. All right, maybe we'll open it up for public comment.
Yeah, and now, we're requesting public comment for item number 5, the Parks Foundation Executive Director's Report. And I see now hands raised for this item.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. All right, let's move on to item 6, the Parks Department update. I don't know if you're gonna give a little update, or I know there was a bit that was added to the packet.
Yeah, and so maybe for the new commissioner, so every meeting we will typically provide a brief written update. As I specified at last meeting, we didn't at the last meeting because we wanted to kind of talk about it and use that as an opportunity to talk about the system as a whole. But this is what the typical department update will look like, and some of that data will be included. You will see that at the November meeting, we'll provide you with some visitor numbers, which will show you kind of how we're doing on a per park basis. I will say, looking at our numbers, we for last fiscal year, so the first part of 2023, we are down a little bit from our visitor numbers. That is to be expected given the winter we had. Actually, if you look at how we've rebounded since then, we're on track with our normal numbers. But given the closures we had at Sawyer Camp, Coyote Point, on the coast side, it's to be expected that, and then just the number of days that parks were just not accessible because of the storms, it's to be expected that we'll see some down numbers in that regard. But we can certainly have that conversation next month when we provide those in the document. Another thing I'd like to kind of point out is, and we talk in here about some of that, our facilities and infrastructure, we include some of our storm damage. So we do have a number of our facilities that remain closed because of storm damage. One of those is Sawyer Camp Trail, which I'm happy to report. The contractor who's doing that repair was on site today, starting that. And so we are making ground with that. We are kind of bumping up against that wet season. And so they are aware of the time constraint that they're working within. We'll continue to keep the commission up to date on that, but we are expecting about 30 construction days. So they'd be finishing ideally kind of right after your next commission meeting. So we'll talk more about that next month. And then at Tunitas Creek Beach, they have finished their clearing and grubbing, which is kind of that first phase. And now what they're doing is stabilizing the landslides. And that's so important because when we purchased that property and we worked with Post to acquire that property, we knew that there were both active and inactive landslides on that property. And we always knew that stabilizing that was going to be one of the most complex aspects of the project, because if we didn't do that, then we were gonna constantly be losing access to the beach, we'd be losing facilities. And so we are starting that aspect, contractor is starting that aspect of the project right now. Really important that we get that done before we start experiencing some heavy rains. And if we do experience heavy rains before we get that done, that has the potential to throw the project schedule off. So something we're watching very closely. And then lastly, we are working on doing some, from facilities and infrastructure perspective, lastly, we are working on doing some or rebidding our flood park project. So this is a project that we have kind of changed some of the technical aspects of our bid documents on, but the essence of the project, the improvements to be built, the design aspects, those are all the same. And so our ultimate goal is to have that project start early next year. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that project, phase one of that project gets done by 2024. And so phase one of that project will include the pump track, which is scheduled to be done in 12 days from now. And then the tennis pickleball court, small multi-use field basketball court, sand volleyball courts, new picnic and reservation areas, walking paths, and then some new landscaping. And one of the things that I absolutely love about this project are these picnic and reservation areas. We've shown images of them in the past and happy to show those again. But these picnic sites there's something about them, the prep station and the tables being longer than your typical, a lot of times our tables are gonna be 8-10 feet wide. Some of these are gonna be twice that. And so it really gives you that communal sense, because what we know is when people use our parks, it's not that 4-person group using, it's not, I think historically, because of our facilities being built when they were, the thought process was mom, dad, 2 kids. Well, what we know is that that's not how our parks are being used. And so our facilities need to represent that. We also have a lot of sites that are going to have these anchored down Adirondack chairs with these amazing pavers under them. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is absolutely amazing. I get so excited when we talk about it. And so we're excited to get that project out to bid and again, be finishing that first phase in 2024. And then I'll ask Anna to talk about some of the fuel reduction work we have going on, but this is obviously a huge focus for us as a department, especially at this time of year. And, you heard the member of the public talk about hazard trees and fuel reduction. I will say in the last 4 years, we've done 1,200 acres of fuel reduction between new treatment and retreatment of areas. 1,200 acres. I mean, that is just a remarkable number. And we've spent millions of dollars. I think we're over 2 million at Quarry Park, around $2 million at Quarry Park alone, which is where we spent. Quarry Park, Hutter, and Wonder Lake have received the most financial attention, certainly in our system. And so we take our obligation to reduce fuel seriously, and then to maintain that area. That's something that the commission has heard me talk about historically, is that we can't fall into a pattern where we treat an area and then we walk away from it. When we treat it, we're making a commitment that we're going to maintain that area in perpetuity so that that vegetation doesn't grow back. And so we do spend a lot of our resources on maintaining areas. Otherwise, that initial investment was wasted. So I'll ask Hannah to kind of go through some of the details on some of the projects that we have active right now.
Yeah, so big update is essentially the completion of a project that was funded by the State Coastal Conservancy and in partnership with the RCD. It was about 100-acre area of shaded fuel breaks within Quarry Park, and mostly focused on interior areas along fire roads. And all of the work on that project completed about 2 weeks ago. And then the same contractor who's been working on that has transitioned to working on another project for parks in Quarry Park within the Marada East area. And they're mostly focusing on removing a lot of the downed logs and other trees that have been impacted from this last winter's storm event. But this is an area that we have previously identified as a fuel reduction priority. And so, this is essentially taking advantage of the fact that we also have these storm impacts in terms of timing to prioritize working in that area. And then we also have a project underway at Memorial County Park, which is also implementation of shaded fuel breaks along Pescadero Creek Road and War Road. And it's about 45-acre area in total. Mostly within 100 feet of either side of each of these roadways within the park. And again, that's just focusing mostly on understory vegetation thinning and retaining that, the main opportunity. And I believe that will be continuing into the end of October, early November in terms of work for that project.
And then lastly, not project related, not program related, but equally important, on Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors recognized San Mateo County Park Rangers as Team of the Month. And so this is something that the county does to recognize, right? We've had Employee of the Month for a long time. We've now expanded that to Team of the Month, recognizing that a lot of the work we do as an organization is team-based. So Park Rangers received Team of the Month. We had, Scott, how many? We had a handful of staff at the meeting. With that, we had so many staff members there, which was so happy to see that there weren't enough seats in the chambers for them, and so all the Rangers had to stand in front of the board while they had to listen to everyone say just remarkable things about them, but people really recognized them and applauded them for their work, and I was really happy to see it because I say it often, I get to come here to these types of meetings. I talk with you all and I get to laugh and smile and joke with you all. But when it's hot, when it's rainy, when there's heavy lifting that needs to be done, it's staff in the field doing that. So they deserve all the recognition for the condition of our parks, and they deserve all the recognition for the great work that the system does. That we're happy to answer questions.
Awesome. One quick thing, and I'll open it up for everyone else. I did want to follow up on the whole notion of the wet season coming up, and I know we had started to talk about it, Hannah, when we were catching up a little bit earlier this week, but I wanted to kind of get a sense as to how much risk we think kind of this upcoming kind of, and you talked about Sawyer as well as Tanitas. Are there any other areas where, getting stuff, and I don't know, is there a hard deadline? Because I know for certain things, there's a hard deadline, right?
So if you're doing work that's going to be impacting waterways, then typically it's October 15th.
Okay.
And you can get extensions on that though, depending on weather conditions. Are there other areas? Countless, countless, right? I mean, and that's why we go through our winter prep process. I would say this year in particular, there's I would classify it as two categories, right? There's the areas that were damaged that still require repair. And then there's just our general winter prep. So our general winter prep is going to be clearing culverts, making sure our roadside ditches are cleared and capable of carrying that water capacity. Making sure any type of drainage features are prepared and ready to sheet the water appropriately. And that's something that we have to do throughout the system.
Right.
And then we have areas that were damaged last year that we are gonna have to take, call it temporary measures on. So Sawyer Camp Trails, obviously a big one. Our hope is that project gets done before the rain comes, so we don't have to worry about that. We do have Toyon Road and Richards Road in Hutter Park. We have a landslide in Coyote Point. We have some areas out in Pescadero that require attention. So there's a number of areas that we have to either utilize sandbags, visqueen, or other measures to try and protect prior to this winter.
All right, let's open up the listeners if you guys have any other comments, questions.
I just had from the chair, one quick one on for Director Calhoun. Obviously, we're not meteorologists and we don't, get up on the national stage and deliver the weather, whether it's local, state, national. But knowing a little bit of Sawyer Camp Trail, do you see any setbacks? And you're onto something. Great point in the intro of this commentary from the commissioners. If there is a setback, how damaging is it to be, because Sawyer was one of the heaviest hit during winter 2022. Do the workers or the people that are gonna do the contract, are there, are they equipped with, doing heavy, I mean, I don't know if there's such a thing called heavy duty outdoor work, but maybe they might, overcompensate with, bags or put more foundation in the areas where it's gonna get hit harder,
Yeah, so I think, well, so permit conditions dictate when we can and can't do work, right? So if we start getting heavy rains, that's gonna shut the project down, depending on the nature of that work. So that's one aspect of it. As far as, when we actually construct the improvements, in the case of Sawyer Camp Trail, we're replacing like for like. And I think that's important to call out because what we received this last year was not right? That by no means that's a normal winter. And I get asked a lot as to, well, are you gonna design your facilities to be able to handle that type of storm? And the answer is no, because we're gonna be over engineering everything, and we're gonna be, in my opinion, actually changing the character of a lot of our parks, because you're gonna start seeing a lot more concrete, you're gonna start seeing a lot more rock. And that's not what we want, right? And so it's a balance between how do we construct facilities that are gonna handle, quote unquote, normal rain events versus being able to handle 100-year, 200-year, 500-year storm event. So with regards to implementation, we'll go like for like, because we do think that was designed properly for, our typical winters. And we are always prepared with sandbags, with Visclean, to redirect raw water, to channel water, to block the flow of water, whatever is necessary for the circumstance. We are always ready to do that. And that's kind of what I was talking about lastly about the Rangers being team one. They were out there this last winter putting a sandbag wall at Quarry Park, changing some of the flow of water coming out of the park based on some of the concerns we've heard from some of the neighbors, including some who spoke today. So we're always ready to take those mitigation measures in the middle of summer.
A few comments. Thanks for the report, and Michelle. Thank you for a great report. I'm sorry I missed the September event, September 10th event. The Friendship Park welcoming event. Will you make some mention of what happened? How did the event go? And
Yeah, I don't think any of us were there, so I'm not able to speak to that.
Okay. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see from a staff perspective.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think this is the documents that you have given to the commission some time ago in 2020. I don't remember what it is. But it's something that sort of the new commissioners, could certainly benefit from. And it lists the parks by district. So District 1, has Junipero Serra, District 2 has Coyote Point, and then all the parks in District 3, and what's in District 4, and then what's in District 5. But in addition to that, I think at one point, we were given a listing of every activity that happened in every district. So there was a listing by date, that, this happened in this district. So, we reconnect with the districts. I think that information was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Because then the question that I was gonna ask, in terms of attachment number 1, is that, some of us are not familiar with the schools, that I mentioned. And so we know the Thomas Edison Elementary, that's Daly City, because that's definitely indicated there. But if that had not been indicated, I would not know which part of the county it was. Hoover, I assume that's in Redwood City.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I don't know where Hatch Elementary is. And
Absolutely.
and I don't know where Gullis Village Elementary is, you know, and El Granada, of course, is in El Granada, and so on and so forth. But what this did, this format of the report did, just told you what activities were being held in every single district. But I think the question that's, you know, at least for me, you know, what as I've asked severally, is that I need to get a sense that the entire county, you know, is being impacted by some of these programs, you know, and some of these activities, some of these school events.
Yeah.
You know, so I would need to know that, okay, this school is located in my district, for instance. I mean, I think that would be helpful to me. And I'm sure it would be helpful to the other commissioners. as well.
Commissioner Chair, Commissioner Hill, what we can do is absolutely add the city that either the event's located or the school that it's coming from.
Right.
I respectfully would like to push back on the district, and here's why. The commission's response, you know, you're advising the board of supervisors on the San Mateo County Park system, not just your district. And this is a conversation I have with supervisors as well, right? This is not just the commission. My goal is that I will get every supervisor, whoever comes through this county while I am in this role, to take ownership of the San Mateo County Park system and not just the parks in their district. And it's so important that that happens, because what we know is that people don't just use the county park closest to their home. They use the county park that provides the experience they want. And so we actually just had a demo from an organization that uses cell data and AI to tell you who's in your park, where they're from, demographics, all that information. One of the most amazing things is, and we used Coyote Point as the demo. And I can tell you right now that give me 1 second, because I think this is really, really important, and it highlights what I'm trying to say here. That the number one, not surprising, the number one zip code that was using Coyote Point during this time frame was San Mateo, but the number 2 was South City. The number 3 was Burlingame, number 4 was Daly City. And then number 5 was San Francisco, and then Daly City again, and then San Bruno, then Redwood City. Point being, I really don't want anyone to think of only their responsibility being the park closest to them. I want everyone to take an ownership and a sense of not just what's in their district, but the whole thing. And so I'm happy to provide whatever information the commission would like. I just want, and if you wanted it by district, I'm certainly happy to provide that. I just wanted to throw that out there because when we saw this, it was even eye-opening for us. And I hope you all kind of get a sense of what that means, you know, from us as a user perspective. And when you look at this, users are coming all the way from Antioch, out by Antioch and Vallejo, and so, you know, it's everywhere. And that's what I really want to get across.
But what I'm suggesting is not taken away from that at all. I'm gonna
Right.
push back as well.
That's okay.
You know, the fact of the matter is that this county is divided up in districts. Whether we like it or not, that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, at one point it wasn't. At one point it wasn't. I mean, elections were held at large. And at some point, you know, a decision was made to divide this county into districts.
Yeah.
You know, so providing information by district should not be a difficult, because
No, it's
I live in East Palo Alto. Of course, I go to all of these other parks. Wonder Lake is my favorite one, you know, and I don't feel restricted.
right.
That, you know, Wonder Lake is not in my district and I'm not gonna go there.
Right.
I'm gonna go there anyway, you know, I'm gonna go there. You see, and I think everybody sort of has that kind of attitude, whether they live in San Ramon and they like a park in our community, they're gonna come here.
They are.
You see what I'm saying? So, but just in terms of this information.
Yeah.
I would really like to urge my fellow commissioners, you know, to agree with me. Let's provide it by district, so we know.
We can absolutely have.
Any other comments? Yeah.
Through the chair, I just had one more question on Coyote, the facilities at Coyote Point.
Yeah.
are those back to 100% in terms of power and everything, all the damage from that storm?
So as far as power, yes, right, we still have a couple picnic sites that are damaged beyond repair. Because a eucalyptus tree fell on them and shattered the table. We still have a couple other facilities, trails that need some repairs, but as far as power is concerned, yeah, our power is up and running. And all of our facilities are being properly served by the utilities. But you know, we are gonna be going through a planning process that looks at Coyote Point, that allows us to break it into segments and start thinking about what is the future of those segments. Kind of similar to what we did at Flood Park, but on a smaller scale. Mainly because I think what we learned was Flood Park was a really big project. I think sizing that down would allow us to be more effective at honing in what people want out of that area and then deliver that.
There's a lot. And then in terms of, again, across all facilities, especially essential services or essential facilities, before this winter, everything's that needs to be running is running. Or are there any projects that need last minute things to do?
So, I mean, there's a number of things that will have to happen with some of our larger cap projects. As for routine maintenance, we'll still need to go through and conduct the culvert clearing and the ditch clearing. Scott, any word on the generator from Memorial Park? Has that been delivered yet?
It has not, no,
Okay.
it's been backward.
Alright, so we did set up some of our facilities down at Memorial Park to take a generator. But we, along with almost everyone else in the country, is trying to get generators, so I think we started that project, a while ago, and it's just been on back order, so there's still a fair amount of work that needs to get done before we receive those first big rain. But we are actively working on preparing for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else from the commissioners before we jump into public comment?
Alright, now open public comment for item number 6. I have one speaker slip for Lynn. Lynn, if you'd like to.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Nice to be here. I wanted to convey my thanks on behalf of Curiosity today for the work that the Rangers are doing on the landslide at the north part of our campus, or just outside. Ryan was out there with the crew. It was noticed immediately by our staff and the BGL, and we all went out to celebrate. It's really nice to see they're mulching the front. In addition, there's going to be some visqueen placed on it, and so we are really grateful for that. And then Aragon, who's not here tonight, is the executive director for Curiosity, told me that FEMA declared the time period when the big storms came through and caused the damage an actual disaster period, which will qualify the parks to apply for funding. And we are very excited for you to do that and hope that it results in some resources for you to address across the county. A lot of things, including a permanent hopeful repair to that cliff area so that the path can be opened up and people can enjoy it safely. They still insist on enjoying it. So we see scufflaws going through the
No doubt.
stuff all the time. And we just sort of cross our fingers that nobody slips down. But the last thing I wanted to mention is I'm very intrigued about the software that you just talked about that shows you. Is this something that the county owns already, or it was just a demonstration to you?
Just a demo, yeah. Well, I'll let you finish and then I'll explain.
Well, I was just gonna say, if in fact you do undertake a contract with them, it's data that would be fascinating for us to access as far as Coyote Point goes too, because we are always looking to expand our reach and our mission throughout the Bay Area. So anyway, all good stuff, and thanks to the Rangers, because they're doing the work that we want to have in place before the storm start.
And just to answer that question briefly, so yeah, we've received a demo on it. We don't have a service contract or a subscription with anyone. We're talking with other county departments to see who else would maybe be interested. We may not even go with this firm. We have to go through the appropriate process, but for us, contracting with some type of firm that would allow us to collect that data is extremely valuable. And I know the commission has brought this up numerous times in the past on how do we collect that data. So
Really cool.
we
Yeah.
are very interested in figuring this out. I actually, when we first heard about it, Commissioner O'Connell was the first person I thought of because he's asked this question before. And we haven't had an efficient way of collecting that data. And so, yeah.
And we have 2 hands raised on Zoom. First speaker will be Fran Pollard. Fran, you should be able to unmute.
Hi again. Yeah, I just wanted to say I was one of the people at the board meeting who thanked the park rangers for all their hard work. I like to thank when I show appreciation when I can. And I just also wanted to thank the county parks for creating the fuel break along the border between the community and Quarry Park as we requested. And my neighbors and I are very grateful for that. So thank you for that. The only tree left is the big eucalyptus, 120-foot tall tree across from my house, which I hope one day will be topped, at least made a little shorter, so I don't have to keep worrying about it falling on my house. I still hope that'll happen one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Next, we have Burnett Silveri. Burnett, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. On that similar subject, this weekend I was doing a little research online about eucalyptus trees, particularly, how easily they can fall over and so on. And I was quite surprised to understand that they are also susceptible to tree branches snapping off and falling. In that research, it looked like there were particularly some issues in parks where that happened and lawsuits that came about from that. And one of the factors apparently in those lawsuits, at least the articles I was reading, was the fact of having an arborist or something in the public area, a program to look at dangerous branches and so on, so that they are trimmed back. I would know recently they had an arborist go out and take a look at the damaged trees for the worried about them falling over in storms and so on. But I don't know if you have a program that looks at the potential for large branches to break down in public areas. If not, it would be suggested that maybe you want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Burnett. And that's all for public comment.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on to item 7, which is the regular agenda. And the thing we wanted to do today, partially because we have a couple new commissioners here, partially because we've had a work plan kind of on the books for a while that we want to start to kind of sort out how we evolve over time. So the thinking here was not to go through every line of the work plan. I think maybe you guys have had a chance to look. Maybe we'll do that in a future in a future session. But through the lens of some of the subcommittees that we built as a result of that work plan, start to talk a little bit about some of the goals as well as some of the work that we've done in each one of these subcommittees to start giving not only the new commissioners but just everyone a better understanding of kind of what's been going on. So that's going to be kind of the main thing that we're going to be going through in today's meeting. One question that I did have, because I saw it was kind of agendized as like 7-1, 7-2, 7-3, 7-4, 7-5.
No, I think
We don't have to go. We can go public comment. Okay, perfect, good. I just wanted to make sure before we got into it. But the way that I was thinking about going through this was for each of the remaining members, because that's the other thing that happened when we put this work plan together. We obviously had 2 other commissioners, some of which were very passionate about some of the areas that they were kind of working on. Since they have left, it kind of left a little bit of a hole. But what we can do is we can talk through some of the progress, some of the goals, as well as just give you guys a little bit better of a flavor as to what we've done on some of these subcommittees, so that as we go into future months, like when we elect the new officers and start to kind of think about next year, you guys can have a better flavor as to what we were trying to do initially, and then as we start to get into it, specifically for you two new commissioners, making sure that you have some of the context so that when we start getting into, okay, how do we want to revise the work plan? How do we want to go forward? That you guys have as much information as possible. Also, if you are interested in any of these subcommittees, I think that's another way that we can go about doing this as well. Last thing I'll say before we just start going subcommittee by subcommittee is the work plan that we did, and it was probably, yeah, it was what, middle of last year? It actually took, yeah,
It was May
May of last year. It actually was it was a great process, but it was a very long and drawn out process to actually really make sure, because prior to that, we had work plans, but we hadn't really done one, in the last couple of years prior. So I think as we go into this next year, we should start thinking about how we want to start realigning this work plan, probably for 2024. But I do remember it being, a pretty long process to get everything kind of lined up. So anyways, as we get into it and as we go later on in this year and into next year, I really would like to see if we can kind of polish off the work plan if there's some stuff that's not relevant or whatever. But this is kind of the first step in that, to give the new commissioners a little bit more information about what it is that we've been going after and how we want to move forward. So Hannah, I don't know if maybe we just go literally bit by bit, but I didn't know if there was any other context or stuff that you wanted to.
I think just this is, probably fairly high level or like rudimentary, but just like for the new commissioners, I know you both have experience on other commissions or councils, but overall for these subcommittees, the intent is to have a group of 2 commissioners able to meet outside of the regular scheduled commission meetings and, advance some of the work on these other goals and objectives in the work plan, bring information back to the commission at large to report out on, and just provides that opportunity to be able to do additional work around the commission outside of these scheduled public meetings, and then use this time in the meetings to be able to report out on that. So obviously you have some familiarity with that from your other prior experience, but just wanted to kind of set that.
Through the chair, I think I would like to suggest something slightly different. Given the experience we had last time in terms of, laboring painfully, through this document. I would like to suggest that, we have to create a work plan that does this work. Looks at this, and it would probably consist of one new commissioner, one of the 3 of us who's been here for a while. Just sort of go through it, figure out, what are some of the goals are still relevant, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, start thinking about what priorities, we should have, as a commission. And then come back in a month's time and tell us, we review this, these are some we think we should retain. These are some we think we should definitely be modified. And these are potential areas where we could add additional goals, and so on and so forth. And then we discuss it collectively, as a commission, and then move forward.
Yeah.
I would like to offer that as a potential.
I think that's a fantastic idea. So we can definitely do that. I think for the purposes of today, it's just getting everyone acclimated as to what's been going on. But yeah, I think as a next step, that definitely could be a great way to organize things a little bit. So yeah, because I do remember kind of the last time. It was a great process, right? Don't get me wrong, but it also took many meetings for us to kind of get it together. So yeah, I like that.
And again, through the chair, what we could do at this meeting is that we could report back on the subcommittee work that have been done. So the new commissions get a sense as to how these subcommittees have worked and how they've fed into the commission's work. And some of these subcommittees may be retained and some may be, replaced and then additional ones added. But I think it would at least be good for the new commissioners to understand of the commission of the subcommittees that were created, what has been the
Yeah.
work product.
Yep, no, and that was the point of today, to start really getting into that. And yeah, I mean, and in some cases, right, we have subcommittees where all of the members are no longer here. So I think even giving you all that context, I think would be really helpful. So, okay. Cool. All right. So I was thinking we just go subcommittee by subcommittee and just kind of talk through what we got. But before I go into that, any other questions, comments, or stuff that folks want to talk about?
So in terms of actions that we need to undertake, should we go ahead and establish that new subcommittee so we know who the members are? And, as a first step before we start discussing this. So if there's this new subcommittee we're creating, and these are gonna be the members, and
If I could just make a suggestion, you may want to ask the two new commissioners if they would like to kind of hear what the subcommittees are and kind of give them a sense of if at that point that's a role they would like to fulfill, or because otherwise they're kind of volunteering blindly.
We still do have the November meeting and the December meeting as well, right? But yeah, if you guys have any strong opinions one way or another, yes.
My goal would be to understand each of these committees, what, when was the last time they were active? What was the last bit of work they did? And then after discussing that, kind of talk about the best approach. Where my gap here is between where the subcommittees line up with the work plan. So that would be the second point I'd like to understand. And maybe that's the work of this, the work plan committee, in which case I would certainly be interested in participating in that new subcommittee.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Yeah, and we can try to tie it. I mean, I know for the couple subcommittees that I'm on, I wanted to kind of highlight where in the work plan we had a goal and kind of why we or what we did or what we weren't able to do as we kind of got into it. So yeah, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, and just to second that, I like the idea of efficiency, for the meetings, and I think that's great, but I would also, before we design a new subcommittee, I'd rather hear a lot about the current ones that we have.
Cool.
And then, it raises a question, if we have a subcommittee to kind of work on the efficiency of these workflows, is that best to have it as a smaller subcommittee to propose to the larger group, or is that something that we would actually do better just as a group thing? Sounds like you guys had experience where it felt a little inefficient or just long.
Yeah.
Or is it just too much work for this kind of a meeting where we have constraints on time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of all of it, right? But yeah, I do think we should probably spend a little bit more time to try to figure out what's the optimal way. I actually do like Commissioner Akello's proposal of having a subcommittee, just because, and we do actually, as we go into the subcommittees, we'll talk a little bit about some of the work that happens where we'll go in and as a subcommittee, right, we'll kind of start teeing stuff up and then be able to kind of put it to the broader commission. So then that way we're not starting from ground zero. So there's still review by the broader commission. But anyways, I think that's something that we can kind of chat about a little bit more once you guys start getting a little bit more of a flavor as to what each one of these subcommittees does.
Okay.
yeah, and through the chair, just to inform the new commissioners, I think we've worked pretty well with the subcommittee structure. I think there's one point where we had to amend the bylaw. So instead of just presenting that whole topic to the entire committee, we created a bylaw committee, a subcommittee. They reviewed, they made their recommendations, and they brought it after they chewed it all up. And then we had a collective discussion on it, and the decisions were made fairly.
Chair, I would just be for the upcoming meetings, and by any means, we do not want to overwhelm the new chairs and new commissioners. And I'm grateful that we in the half of time that we finally got our commissioners, and granted our previous commissioners that served a good amount of time did have a heavy interest in some of the subject matters that were more proficient than others, but that's notwithstanding the two new commissioners that we have here, because they bring in probably a ton of experience from being on maybe previous commissions or having a best interest of being a part of this park commission. So, I'm very fortunate that we do have two commissioners, and we do have a full embodiment of a commission where we weren't just on three commissioners or cancel meetings and things like that. So, very grateful that the supervisors from the respective districts finally responded to, our best interest to find and get a pool of people who they finally narrowed down to. So that we don't want to overwhelm them, but I'm sure that they would be a part of getting on board with these subcommittees, and that's pretty much what we don't want to inundate them as well too.
Well, we appreciate, I speak for maybe both of us, I'm sure we appreciate that perspective, but happy to dig in and get some work done. So, well, good.
Cool. Likewise.
All right, well, maybe we just get into it. I guess first one up is the Budget and Performance Subcommittee. I believe that was Commissioner Green and Commissioner Akello.
Right.
Commissioner Green left quite a while ago. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the goals that we had and yeah, what we've been able to do.
Actually, we never got to that point of that. I think because we realize, the budget process in the county is not one of like every other year. So, it's multiple years budgets. That's one. And then two, there's certainly potentially, sort of almost an ideological disagreement. We do not supervise the department. That's not our role. We don't get into the nitty-gritty about the department's performance. That is not. Our relationship is with the Board of Supervisors. So we advise them at a sort of like at a policy level. This is what we think, the priority should be, and so on and so forth. And then the board decides, and then the department ultimately has to come up with a budget that now reflects those, those priorities. And so budget and performance, sort of implies, that we're gonna be, zeroing in on how the department is, specifically performing in certain specific areas. And I really don't think that is, that is the commission's role. We're definitely interested in how priorities are translated into budget terms. We're definitely interested in that. But as soon as the priorities are established, the department convinces the board that this should be the priorities for the department, and then the department has the professional wherewithal, to translate that into a budget and so on and so forth. And so the mission then of this subcommittee was to just review, the budget and digest it, and then come back to the commission and say, this is, this is ultimately what it is. But Commissioner Green left pretty early, so it became a one-person thing, and with that did not work as well. So we were anticipating having somebody else, and then having a two-body subcommittee.
Ask a question? Sure. I assume that each of these subcommittees is formed, its genesis is an issue comes up.
Yes.
And then we say in response to that issue, hey, let's form subcommittee, let's dig in and try to sort this one out. I'm just kind of curious, was there an issue that triggered the formation of the budget performance committee?
No, I would. Well, I'll let you. Yeah, I'll let you.
Yes, Commissioner Green was particularly, because she whatever organization she works for, she deals with budgets. And so she wants us to examine the department's budget with a tooth comb or whatever, a toothpick
Fine.
or
Fine, come.
a fine tooth comb, that's, that's the expression.
Well,
you know.
but I think the nice way to say it is that we were looking to give not only the commission, but also the public
Public.
better visibility
Right.
into kind of
Right,
where
right.
things are being spent, right?
Right. That, I think that was Commissioner Green's,
Yeah.
primary concern, that, our responsibility is also to the public.
Mhm.
In terms of transparency, so you'll see another committee that has the word transparency, so Commissioner Green was extremely concerned about being very transparent
Yeah.
in terms about all of this.
And I think Commissioner Kelly is being a little bit modest. We actually did do a lot of things, right? So I think part of what happened as part of this is there's now like more structured time. And I was just talking to Hannah before the meeting. I think the next go around is in like the March timeframe prior to the submission of that next kind of year of budget, where they're gonna be coming in front of the commission and talking a little bit about, where the expenditures are kind of going and things like that. And while to Commissioner Kelly's point, we don't have like tremendous influence over it, right? We do have, well, not only the ability, but the obligation to make sure that we're providing that visibility, right? And ask questions and kind of see what's going on. So I think there's definitely a lot, that still can go on. We'll figure out whether we feel like we need a budget and performance subcommittee moving forward. But I think in terms of not only like the pure budget, but also the metrics, right? Around kind of, and that's where I think the performance part of the budget of the performance or the budget and performance committee came, trying to figure out if there are other metrics. And I know the Parks Department actually has a series of metrics that they use to kind of show above and beyond just the finances. But I think that's the other area as well. I don't know if we got that far into that one in particular, but I think that was another area that we wanted to make sure there was more visibility into, and that we had more of these performance metrics around kind of how the Parks Department is doing.
And let's admit, the department has some benefits from that process, because then the public gets to discuss the budget before it goes, to the Board of Supervisors. Not that they're precluded from going to the Board of Supervisors meeting, but if a lot of their questions are answered at this board level, at this commission level. So by the time it gets to the board, people are familiar with the issues, and they may ask additional questions at the board meeting and so on and so forth. But a lot of the groundwork has been done at this point.
That's right.
And for the new commissioner, we're happy to meet with you all to kind of talk about, we can give you kind of a one-on-one with Rolando, our fiscal officer, an overview of our budget process and our budget as well. But there's a lot of, like, we do a 2-year budget. So if you're not familiar with the 2-year budget, kind of the first time you see it, it could be a little backwards. So we're happy to provide that. We can do that here for everyone as a refresh. We can certainly do it for the new commissioners. It's whatever you all would like. But it's an important aspect because we front load all the work in year 1. And then for year 2, they're really minor modifications. And so that's why it's so important to understand the structure of that process.
Is there a standing, like within, an annual cycle, is there a typical meeting where we go over the budget?
We did for a while, and I think it was like normally set, like I remember there was that little flow chart where we had like the little parts within the different years, but
We still use it. I just moved the star based on what month we're in. So typically what we try to do is when there's an item that we're asking the commission to weigh in on, we try and bring it to you all 2 months before we bring it to the board.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to give you the presentation, digest it, and then the subcommittee can work on it if they want, and then bring it to the commission at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then we go to the board. And so that gives the commission an opportunity to send a letter to the board if they want. So for example, what we did this time around was we brought the presentation in May, and then the commission had the opportunity to use the June meeting to send a letter. And then at the end of June is when the Board of Supervisors adopted the recommended budget. So that's kind of how that worked. And that was for year 1. So we're in year 1 right now. Next fiscal year will be year 2.
Thanks.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No,
Akello?
that's it.
Any other questions before we move on to the dog management?
Well, it's just one other comment, just from my, own experience in, the city of Belmont and their Parks and Rec group, basically with our, smaller subcommittees, they would come and they would go, as needed. We didn't just continue to grow
That's
our
right.
list of subcommittees. So, it makes perfect sense to me that there may have been a home for this at one point in
Yep.
time, and then we could,
Yeah.
potentially decide, hey, that's actually not needed currently because maybe the need for the transparency comes out in the other one.
Yep.
Or maybe it's already been addressed by implementing, some sort of a annual presentation of our budget, to the public and to the commission.
Yeah.
Things like that.
For
So,
sure.
like just, that one might just disappear. I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and that's what I hope is, and also it's with the individual commissioners as well and what they're passionate about as well. So, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, totally. Cool.
So quick question, just dovetailing on what the director just said. Have each of the commission received this massive binder?
Mr. Kello, truthfully, I'm not actually sure what you have in front of you, so.
It looks impressive, actually.
It
but-
looks like it looks like,
Yeah, it was the first thing that I got,
no,
you know, and.
that has not
and-
been
and
issued,
it-
although I'd love to see it.
it had tabs, and so on and so forth, and it had some.
Yeah, it sent us, it's
you know,
electronic
very
now.
interesting.
Yeah, it's all electronic. I mean, I asked
Yeah.
for a printed
Yeah.
copy just
Yeah.
because I like to make notes, but
Right,
we're getting. I'm sure we don't have the extensive notes that you have.
that was old.
But we will build
school.
our own binders.
Yeah, so you
Order.
gotta build your own binders, whatever the information that's been sent to you online. You've gotta build that. I mean, this was, I'm seeing some other stuff here that was extremely helpful.
I mean, I'd love to, after the meeting, take a look at that and just
Yeah.
make sure that what you have in that is the same information we have in our electronic folder that
Yeah,
gets sent
okay.
out.
All right.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the dog management subcommittee. So this was headed by Commissioner Marilees, who promptly moved on. So I know that prior to my joining the commission, the dog management subcommittee, there was a lot of work. I don't know if
Yeah, there was.
yeah,
I wasn't-
so maybe you guys can talk a little bit, but I think since I've been on over the last couple of years here, it's died down a little bit, but I know that Commissioner, from a subcommittee standpoint, but I know that there's a lot of work that's continuing to go post kind of the test and a lot of these other things where, it might or probably make sense to have one of these moving forward, especially as we try to start doing more off leash in other areas, assuming we do, I don't know, but yeah, yeah.
The Quarry Park thing is a pilot.
If I may, so the pilot's concluded.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the pilot has concluded, it concluded back in April of this year. And so where we are in the process right now is we took the data from the pilot and the department made the determination that the data warranted making the use permanent. And so we brought that to the commission, we brought that to the Mid-Coast Community Council last week, I think it was. And then it'll be going to the planning commission in November. The planning commission will then weigh in on whether they want to issue a coastal development permit for that or not. And if they do, then the department will be able to make that.
I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting. Is there anyone who can open the sheriff's office here?
Now, where's the Parks Department?
Oh, you're just the parks?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just the parts.
To be honest, I was actually really relieved as well, cause I thought she was gonna say something like,
I'm sorry.
there's a fire, we're all gonna have to get out, and like, so, yeah, no, I was actually happy with how that one went, compared to where I thought it was starting. Dog, yeah, I'm sorry, so essentially, the planning commission will weigh on it if they wanna issue a coastal development permit, at which point if they do, then the use becomes made permanent, right? So we've done our data collection, we believe that the use warrants it, we will continue to do monitoring, not at the extent that we were before, I mean, we
Right.
literally had dedicated a significant amount of resources to monitoring. So the pilot's done, we do believe that use is appropriate, and we do believe that the data supports that. So I just wanted to clarify, that, you know, we're out of the pilot phase.
And so the dog subcommittee is gonna be looking at potentially other parks in the county park system where we could have off-leash.
I'm sorry, was that a question or a comment? I wasn't.
No, just a comment.
Oh, okay.
No, this is just a comment. In terms of we still do need a dog, an off-leash dog or a dog management subcommittee. We still do need it. And, just trying to wrap my mind around what it would be doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the prerogative of the commission and it's certainly your role to establish those committees and to explore those conversations.
But as at a minimum, I would assume that at least for there's now camping at Memorial, right? As well as Quarry, making sure and even the public comment earlier, right? Asking about, so I have a feeling at a minimum, there's going to be a number of issues even with the existing parks kind of coming up that may warrant a subcommittee just to,
A dog management.
yeah.
And through the chair, just like the background as well, there was initially a board recommendation or direction to the department to explore off-leash and on-leash dog access. And then there was a specific dog management committee and a dog work group that were formed that this commission subcommittee was a member of. Those are no longer active.
Got it.
groups.
I just circled it and I was gonna ask about that because that is the one goal, that 1.3.1 participate in dog management committee.
Yeah,
So that's been
ultimately the
disbanded.
goal of those was to create recommendations around on-leash and off-leash use, and those resulted in us having on-leash recreation approved for Coyote and the Paracera County Parks, and then the off-leash recommendation was ultimately approved for Quarry Park. And so that was the purpose of those working groups, to meet and provide those recommendations and then some policy recommendations for how dog recreation will be. But with those kind of tasks completed from that board sort of directive,
Got it.
those working groups are no longer active.
Through the chair, in my almost 7 years on this great commission, I recall from the get-go, from out the gate, that Commissioner Merrilees had his hands involved severely, or rather seriously, within the interest and well-being of dog management, and probably for years that he's been on the commission, that he was at the helm entirely, probably was spearheading a lot of events, and I attended a few events at Sarah Park and Coyote Point, and some of the parks he had on the coast. Now that he's not here, and right as Commissioner Green was to take, and she took her first meeting at the Captain's House. We had almost 100 people show up with the subject matter of off leash, and then pandemic hit, and the subject matter kind of derailed a little bit. Like it was no longer a hot topic because a lot of us were not really paying attention, or not so much paying attention, but we didn't meet in person, and it wasn't like if we were in person in a big conference room where many people from residents and the general public came and had their 2 minutes to speak about why should we do this and why should we do that. I think maybe it's best if someone from this commission maybe spearhead and maybe what Commissioner past Emeritus Commissioner Merrilees left off. Maybe some of you can maybe spearhead that where he once spearheaded it himself.
And I think Commissioner, through the chair, then Commissioner Merrilees was interested in still being engaged at some level.
Even though, yeah, agreed, even though he left the commission as his capacity, he said, I'm not gonna be completely invisible. Let me at least somehow pave the way for the new commissioners who maybe some of them might wanna take on the responsibilities that I had when I was a past chair, commissioner, and the 7.3 was what's on the agenda of 7.3 was a very sentimental issue for him, that he can maybe help and anyone that's willing to partake in this.
I was through the chair. I had previously expressed my interest
Yep.
in that committee, being a longtime dog owner and rescue veteran and if, again, I feel like we should go through all of these and kind of go through the work plan and figure out what the best strategy is for which committees we keep and which committees maybe we reinvent. Before I want to, actually sign my name to the dotted line, but that would definitely be something that kind of, I would say, lies in my wheelhouse to continue. And I think it opens a really interesting discussion between our dog owners, another served constituency and could be folded into a committee that just looks at equity, or because of the complexities of having a dog and their extra needs in a park, it should be a separate subcommittee. So I think that's an area we can explore further.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to do all that today. I don't think we will do all that today, but yeah, I think that was the point of starting to kind of get you guys immersed in some of this stuff so you can start to figure out what's going on, and then, start to kind of, check box next to things that might make sense so that we could have a more kind of comprehensive discussion on it in the coming months.
I like it.
Yeah.
Question for the chair, relates to thoughts of, well, kind of to your point about kind of having a needs assessment, right? And wondering how we get this information brought up to us on the commission. Because I think also about overlap between county services and city services. And so if you think about dogs, which is a great example for this, we may be thinking about, oh, dogs, so now we have off leash, the pilot is done over at Quarry Park. And that's something that the county has done. But what if a city nearby there also has done the same thing, and now suddenly you have high concentration of off-leash dogs right there, but then we've missed an opportunity, somewhere else. And so, if we think about that, it kind of also segues over to the, partnerships and connections section, I would imagine, because if we knew like, oh, hey, this city's completely underserved for that purpose, and we could choose where we would put that effort, we'd probably put it in the more underserved area.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
no, and these are exactly the conversations that we need to start having, especially, having the new commission, both of you guys kind of on board. So yeah, definitely looking forward to having those. And also, once you guys get a chance, I know you just got some of these goals and stuff, and I don't even know if it was in the packet. At least maybe it was just handed to you right now. As we said, oh, you did, good. So that we can start to figure out and you guys can continue to ask questions. But this was the first in what I hope is many times for us to start discussing and figuring out what's going to be relevant as we head into the next year.
And from this previous experience, there are dog lovers, there are dog haters, there are horse lovers, there are horse haters, there are pedestrians, there are hikers and riders on all these trails and so on and so forth. That they and then they're bikers in certain situations. So we have this multiplicity of interests, that the dog management committee was able to sort of grapple with in terms of at least bringing them together and having people talk to each other and then just figure out, okay, dogs are gonna be there. They won't, if you're a dog hater and I wish they stop existing, that's not gonna happen. You see, so dogs are gonna be there. So how are we gonna live with dogs and horses and riders and people that are not scared of dogs, people that are scared of dogs and all of that stuff? So how are we gonna create a situation in our park system that can accommodate the interest of this variety of folks, and so the dog management committee, I think, still needs to continue to exist because those issues are still gonna be there. Right? Those issues are still gonna be there.
Cool. All right. For the sake of time, maybe we move on to 7.4, the Parks Naming Subcommittee, and I believe that was also Commissioner Merrilies. I think, was it you?
And me
Commissioner
too,
Tom?
and
Yeah.
me too, and me too, and me too. I think Commissioner Merrilies was really interested in acknowledging the presence of Native Americans in this country way before everybody else. And he suggested to the commission, and I think we accepted, the idea that we should probably think about, naming, some of our facilities within our park system, using, Native American names. And he made a very significant effort in trying to connect with Native American groups and, sort of developing a relationship and having them participate in, coming up with appropriate names and so on and so forth. And we're not talking about renaming the parks, but there are facilities within the parks, there are groves or whatever it is within the park, that could be named. And he would be the first one to admit that the Native American presence has been so diluted, to the point that it's very difficult to connect, with a group. That's one. And the group that he ultimately connected with, they're striving to revive their language, and so, so even in terms of coming up with words and names and so on and so forth, they would have some difficulties with. But at the same time, it wasn't just Native Americans. When you talk about diversity and equity, and our county is very, very diverse. We're talking about other communities as well. And so, how about creating names, of spaces within our park system, or even trails, that reflects the county's, the county diversity. And in the process, we talked about Sam McDonald Park, who it was named after. And I think there's a niece of his who had visited, the county, because she heard somewhere on the grapevine that there was a park that was named after her uncle. She did not know that. Wow. And when she got here, she says, "Who the heck is Sam? That's not my uncle's name. His name is Emmanuel. Emmanuel McDonald, that was his name, And he says, what is Sam? How did that Sam name come about? But the reality of the matter is he did adopt the Sam name at some point, regardless of the circumstances under which he adopted it, but he did adopt it. So we broadened the discussion beyond Native Americans and started thinking about, the diversity in the county and how we can create spaces where when people ride through, walk their dogs through, ride horses in, they encounter spaces that reflects that diversity.
All right, any thoughts or questions? Commissioner Kello? All right, cool. All right, well, let's move on to the fuel reduction and forest health subcommittee. So to kind of step back when we were doing the last work plan, this was prior to all of the crazy storms that happened. The big thing was that there were a lot of fires in the last two seasons prior to this one were really, really bad. And so there was not only, a lot of work going on, right, that I think as we were starting to look through wasn't quite as visible. It's 1.2.1, just if you guys are following along at home for the action items. But basically, we realized that we needed to have a lot. Is that funny? Is that funny? I'm sorry.
I'm thinking back to like, I'm having like flashbacks to that, what was 4 months with the subcommittees and just like that was such a process. And then like going through it, I'm just like rehashing all of it in my head.
A lot of it still holds, right?
I would
which is
agree
great, but anyways, sorry, I'm
no, and it's but it's nice to hear Maida's kind of talking about something like the naming committee, for example, because I think that's information that didn't make its way all the way here.
Yeah.
So
That's
like
right.
some of that I was unaware of. So not the like you and I have talked about this Sam McDonald. but the expansion of kind of what the footprint of the committee was working on. Cause I know when I last talked to Commissioner Merrilies before he left, he had told me he was focused more on the indigenous,
Yeah.
so I think it's actually a great idea to expand it beyond that.
Yeah. Cool. All right, but anyways, just to kind of start, giving you guys a flavor as to the fuel reduction and forest health subcommittee. So there was a lot of work going on. There was kind of state of emergency, a lot of funds that were kind of being put out for fuel reduction because of those last 2 years that were really, really bad for fire season, right? So we thought that it would be great to start giving folks, not only the commission, but also the public, a lot more visibility into the work that's going on. What's actually like, what parks are being worked on, the plan around, hey, it's not just Quarry Park, there's a whole bunch of other parks that we've been doing a lot of the fuel reduction on, but then also starting to kind of understand like where these things are being funded, and then really have like more frequent updates in terms of what's going on and what's happening. And so over the last couple quarters, right, we've actually had a number of different kind of updates within this meeting. There also was, and I don't know if we've kind of kept it updated, you probably did, a spreadsheet to kind of show like where the work is going on, what's the funding, like how far are we going into it, so that we could have a lot more better understanding of what was going on. I think in the craziness of the storm side of the house, in January and beyond, we might have kind of taken our eye off the fuel reduction piece, but given kind of where we're at and where we need to go, these things are not going to stop, and there's a lot of work, as Hannah was mentioning, that we still do on this area. But the point was to start to provide a little bit more awareness and visibility into it, which over the last year I think we've had at least 3 or 4 updates on it to make sure that everyone knows and understands what it is and who's funding it and how we're progressing in those areas as well.
Through the chair, if just to real quick, just to highlight a little bit, not sure if there's any correlation here or relevancy, but on a Zoom meeting that we had, could have been 21 or it could have been 22, but I believe we had, if it wasn't CAL FIRE Chief Armstrong or maybe Chief Rodriguez was talking about how the inmates were really doing an incredible job cleaning up our forests and including the county parks that had impacted severely with the fires that we had endured in both back-to-back years. So that was something that I think you were chairing, and it was a influential guest speaker who really highlighted the subject matter, especially the health of the parks, generally dealing with the forest fires. And I think it would be great if we have someone of that stature obviously in meetings to come and God willing years to come, where upcoming year, or maybe if we can even squeeze something within the next couple months, someone from CAL FIRE to speak, because they have that backbone. If their collateral is forest fires, and maybe the superintendent can speak in any correlation. If someone from CAL FIRE or even the superintendent can speak on the cleanup that these inmates did to possibly improve these destroyed parks that we have. If you remember those meetings.
No, I very much remember those meetings. The reason what I'm thinking is, so I don't think there's as tight of a correlation between the impacts of CZU and the work of the California Department of Correction Rehabilitation Work Crews. I don't think there's a really close enough correlation between the two to warrant a presentation. Not say that there isn't any connection, right? I mean, a lot of the work crews did a lot of work on Old Hall Road prior to the fire, which allowed it to serve as a as a fire line and as a critical access point. But we haven't used CDCR work crews as a way to clean up after that damage. They've done some work for us, admittedly since that time, due to a number of factors, including criminal justice reform in the state of California. The number of work days we've had has reduced considerably. Not to nothing, but considerably. And so I do think having a couple guest speakers on this would be really helpful. I'm not sure.
No, that
CDCR
would be
great, though.
sufficient. That would really speak on their behalf. They would speak on the future of the forest and what impact the fire had in the past 2 years. That's plenty.
Alright, anything else on 7.5? Hopefully that gave you a little better, the other thing was, I was always the only person on the subcommittee, subcommittee of one, but yeah. Thanks.
But just to the chair, just a quick question to confirm that, so this one was put together basically in response to the fires and now storms and how we're handling that and making sure we had a vehicle for transmitting data to the public about efforts.
Yep. And once again, right, and I think rightfully so, as it went from, fires to storms, right? The shift over this year has been more in talking about like the storms in some of these meetings, so. Good, all right, we'll go to 7.6, the Equity, Inclusion and Access Subcommittee. So actually there were a couple of goals on this. So it was 1.2.2. 1.6.1 and 1.6.2. So this was a subcommittee that was Commissioner Green as well as myself. When Commissioner Green left, obviously it kind of left a little bit of a hole because there was a lot of work that needed to be done in this area. And once again, I think a lot of it was visibility, but some of it was to make sure that we were aligning with park staff and with others to make sure that we were driving and also highlighting, right, the equity, inclusion and a lot of the access pieces. So a couple of things that we did, and I know it was painful, Nicholas.
What did I do?
You remember when we talked a little bit about the interpretive strategic plan. So one of the first things that we did as part of this subcommittee was to work with park staff to make sure that our opinions were added in as part of this interpretive strategic plan. I mean, I thought all in all, it ended up, I was talking bad about it, but I thought it actually went well. The park staff was very open to our suggestions. And I think, we ended up with a much better work product when all was said and done, right? So I think that was one of the areas that we were able to kind of work and help to drive some of it. I will say though that, with Commissioner Green rolling off, a lot of the progress in this area has kind of ground a little bit to a halt, unfortunately. That said, I really do feel like this is an area, and we'll talk about it as we start debating what we want to add or get rid of or whatever. Obviously, this is going to be one that I think we probably should continue to push and have more than just the general because I know it's part of what all of the folks on the commission want to go after, but I feel like having a little bit more dedicated support in this area is going to be really helpful. I think the trick or the interesting part is going to be figuring out what should be the goals, right? As we kind of move forward, right? Because I think upfront it was more of the visibility, right? As well as, making sure that we were kind of putting our perspective into some of these documents and other things. But things like we were also going to be connecting with the I think it was the equity officer for the county. I know her time was hard to kind of come by. We never really got about to that. But I do think that as we're thinking about the new work plan, we should figure out and would love to get ideas specifically from the new commissioners, right, as to where we might want to go as we go into this next year.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm looking at this bulky monstrosity here, but we've had previous work plans. And I'm looking at the previous one, which did not copy well, because the first column sort of got chopped here. But on this equity thing, I think we're gonna request a presentation on the IDEA initiative, and I don't remember what IDEA stands for. Inclusion, diversity, equity,
Accessibility?
and accessibility. Okay, so we request a presentation on the IDEA initiative. That was, one of our activities. And the objective was to promote park programs and efforts that promote the health, well-being, and safety of county residents, as well as equitable and diverse access to the county parks.
Didn't some of those programs kind of like collapse? Yeah, okay. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
the-
talk a little bit about,
The
yeah.
idea initiative morphed into a couple different things, and so it's no longer, I mean, we haven't had it under the idea banner in some time.
All right.
The ultimate goals and objectives of the idea initiative are still very much ingrained in our efforts as a department,
All right.
which is not under that
That's
banner anymore.
Okay, and somehow we zeroed in on health. For some reason.
Under that,
Yeah. Request presentation on programs that promote health and well-being. Including ways to promote, support, and grow if needed, those programs, and provide feedback. And so, this is an old action, work plan. That goes older than
Yeah.
this one.
Well,
but-
and I guess, and I think we did actually add, so I'm looking at 1.2.2, it said review updates on idea initiative,
Initiative.
right? So I think the spirit of some of that is there. Anyways, I think we can rehash all this stuff as we go into like the next iterations of what the work plan is and should be, but yeah. I guess I can say, because we were part of the subcommittee, I don't think we got as far as we would have liked to in this area. I mean, some of it had to do with Commissioner Green leaving, but yeah, I think for this next year, we should figure out, and maybe we need to kind of break it into, other specific areas. Maybe, the health part is gonna be one of it, and maybe we could do some other ones, but yeah, I think that's just for us to kind of hash out and figure out what we feel is most important.
If we can get past the stop sign from the driveway, I think that's how far we got. We didn't even get to the stoplight.
Yeah.
We got to the stop sign, but so with maybe more minds and kind of where we're headed in that society, we've evolved, and there's a lot of this in society with whether you want to call it DEI or idea. There's a lot of that, and I think this is something that really interests us. I think this can kick off for the 2024 year.
Yeah. Totally.
yeah, I mean, just a quick comment. I mean, I think that of all the, subcommittees that we have here, this is in essence, maybe the most important one and most far reaching.
Absolutely.
Just in the sense of when we think about what our ultimate mission is, and of course, we've got to deal with, fuel reduction, and of course, we've got to do lots of things, but we could make the mistake of really ignoring this, topic, which I'm sure we will not do. But it can branch out into all the things that we do. And I was just curious from the director, or maybe from, assistant director, has there been any comments recently from supervisors, or kind of a mandate for us, as far as in this particular area? Because I'm sure this is a very important topic for them as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So, and I agree with what you're saying, right? I think, and the word we use at the county is equity, right? I mean, everything folds under equity, diversity, inclusion, except all of that folds under equity here. And everything we do has to have that equity lens. So I do think that as a standalone subcommittee, I think realistically, that equity lens should be being applied to everything. And so having it as a breakout, that's certainly up to you all, but at the county level, right, we don't have, like, for example, our performance measures, we don't have a sole performance measure about equity. All of our performance measures have to tie into equity. And so I do think that, and if you look at partnerships and connections, that is inherently equity based. When you talk about that naming subcommittee, that is inherently equity based. How we allocate our funds is equity based. And so, yeah, I mean, I think candidly, I mean, as you're talking, right, I do think there's some consolidation that could happen here to help improve efficiencies.
But I mean, even with the work plan that we had, we weren't saying we're gonna do anything and everything with regard to equity, right? We had 3 specific things that we wanted to work on under that umbrella, full well realizing that that's kind of, you know, an overarching goal of the whole thing. So,
Right.
and I think as we formulate the new work plan, we just gotta also figure out how we can kind of set the right goals for ourselves. Which, yeah, last time it took a while, but I think, you know, we kind of got there, but yeah, we can figure out how to make it happen. Cool. All right, let's, yeah, just for the sake of time, and I'm not sure if folks are gonna be rolling off like in the next 10 minutes here, but let's go to 7.7, the Transparency and Visibility Subcommittee.
I'm gonna have Commissioner Mane do that.
Okay.
I think, thank you, Mr. Okello. 7.7 was always a passion to me and with Commissioner Okello. We try, being commissioners and being part of this great commission, to be as visible and create the paths for people to know what we're about, and also to create openness. Commissioner Okello did a few studies with visiting parks to see the different ages and groups and cultures and you know, those demographics to see how the parks were from a financial, from I mean, just a lot of that, many of those variables that we tried to capture and maybe try to promote to improve the park attendance and culture and awareness. If I'm not on the right track, maybe Commissioner Okello can, you know, maybe piggyback.
I'll refresh your memory. We went to the youth.
We went to the youth conference and I'm mixing, and Supervisor Bloom, Carol Groom, was the one that was put this all together. And it was, and I apologize for missing the 28th. I had previous engagements, but that was an invitation that we could have attended, but I was not able to. But I think if we engage in more of those that brings more awareness and in interacting with commissions within this county, I think that's something that we could build upon. And as we have a lot more youth and a lot more people wanting to involve in coexistence and correlate and interact with the commissions amongst the county, I think this is something that we could really build bridges upon.
And I want to remind you of something else, Mane, because Commissioner Mane, because you're the one who really brought, we had to make a presentation to these youth commissioners. And in his very unique way, he just started asking them, you know, what parks in San Mateo County did they know?
Yeah,
and they didn't. We started calling out specific parks. Do you know that this park exists? And they didn't have a clue. You know, this park.
Of all the 23 parks that we have within San Mateo County, not one of the attendees knew where Wonderlick or Hutter or Sam or the ones along the Hapu Bay or the coast or Fitzgerald Marine or Geneva, none of them. So I think that it was a little Bruce Lee punch in the throat, but it wasn't that big of a punch. But if we can maybe increase awareness, then maybe these kids would know that, hey, you guys can visit these parks also.
Yeah, these are your parks. These are your parks. I think that was the eye opener for us, and that's what eventually led to the creation of this subcommittee. That we have young people who are taking positions of responsibilities as commissioners attached to all of these, county park commissions, but they did not know about, our parks and so on and so on. Not one, and that's really shocked us. And that really was the genesis,
So I think we're getting the Transparency and Visibility Subcommittee mixed up with the Partnerships and Connections Subcommittee. I don't know if you look,
Seven,
right?
7 and 7, 8.
Yeah, so the Transparency and Visibility Subcommittee lines up with goal 5, which is increased transparency and visibility of county parks, plans and initiatives. And then the Partnerships and Connections Subcommittee lines up with goal 4, which is explore and strengthen partnerships to expand equitable utilization and access to county parks and the partnerships with the regional organizations.
No, I'll talk about that.
Okay.
And I did provide an attachment.
Okay.
Over.
Well, that's right, because
Yeah,
you did a
yeah.
report, a little bit ago. Yeah.
Report to the commission, and I specifically reference goal number 4.
Got it. Cool.
And my reason for doing this written report was to encourage my other subcommittees that, let us, when we report back, let's have a written report. Because it's gonna be easier to remember, and it's only gonna be easier to understand. So if you don't mind, you can skip it, because I really do have to leave by 6 o'clock.
That's
Real quick, I know that Commissioner O'Kelly was trying to get in the future of getting more field trips and getting more awareness, because he's done several studies on this, and like a deep dive into who comes into our park. So I think that's something we can table for future.
Okay.
all right.
And so goal number 4,
Yes.
specific objectives. Support Parks Foundation with attendance at events and promotion of content for online social media campaigns. 2, establish relationship with local San Mateo County park groups and attend relevant meetings. Communicate work being done by the commission and partner with groups to increase visibility and usage of parks across San Mateo County. Ensure representation in cross-jurisdictional parks and continuity of trails in projects like Bay Area Reach Trail and Local 30 by 30 initiative. So one of the first things that we did is we tried to identify all the agencies that we could certainly partner with. And of course, they are public agencies, and then they are nonprofit agencies and so on and so forth. And we listed a lot of those agencies, and we also interface with staff, because there are agencies that staff already has an established relationship with. And so if those are relationships, we really just try to build them up. And we remembered one time, very early in my serving on this commission, there was a convention of all park commission, city park commissions, and I think we hosted that. Just to get to know each other, talk about what individual cities were doing, talk about what it is that we're doing. And we were hoping that those would be regular activities over time. Yeah, but as you know, the county Parks and Recreation Department went through
Multiple.
There's a time we had interim directors, we had,
Fill-ins.
we were not stable, so there are a lot of that was done when we had, sort of a stable director.
We had
Yeah, and so those are the things that we wanted to do. Let's establish, very distinct relationship with city commissions. And, tell them we do exist, and use that to promote what we have, so we could have more of the citizens, certainly utilizing our parks. And there's a thought that came through my mind that just disappeared. And then also make connections with the private nonprofits. San Mateo Parks Foundation is definitely one of them. Peninsula Open Space Trust is another one. Friends of Huddard, we know they have a relationship with a department, but with the commission, we really don't have, any kind of, formalized kind of Friends of Edgewood, Friends of Fitzgerald, Marine Reserve, Friends of all of these friends, San Mateo County Historical Association, Curiosity was also, it was also put on that list, Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, Ramatush, Ohlone Tribe, and Together Bay Area. And one of the action plans, or one of the action things that we wanted to recommend, Mary Liz and I, was we can get some of those entities to begin making formal presentations to the commission over a certain period of time. We'd invite them and we'll take on that task. It was not anything that we felt would be imposed, you know, on the county department side. We'll take on that task of making the connection and working with the chair and the vice chair and including them on the agenda and so on and so they can come and tell us this is what we do. Yeah. And this is how our work intersects with what you guys do. Yeah.
Maybe it's time that, really quick, maybe it's time that we do host bring a rebirth of a conference or convention in 2024. Maybe that's something to think about.
It may be something to think about. As a subcommittee can think about it, present it, get it discussed, and if it can be included in a budget and so on and so forth, then we can do that. But that's the direction that we're heading. That let's have formal relationship with some of these public agencies and some of these nonprofits. Let's invite them to our commission meetings, because we are just not the audience. There are other people that are watching, you know, that may be wondering, God, pure odyssey, what they do, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the direction that we're headed. But then, of course, you know, then it become a one-person subcommittee and, you know, things are sort of put in the back burner. And so we'd like to, you know, get things back on the front burner. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I do want to thank you, Commissioner O'Kell, for providing a written report, because that made it really easy for me to understand. And I went through your report and came up with a lot of suggested potential partnerships, organizations that I know already do things in the parks and aren't there, and organizations I'd like to see. And this goes a lot to diversity, not only diversity of cultural backgrounds, but also diversity of functional needs.
Right.
And I think we can, if we build out that list, we can fulfill a lot of goals, you know, through that mechanism. And also, you know, one thing, in addition to bringing them here to this meeting, we can also perhaps facilitate doing that cross-pollination on social media, so that we raise the visibility of our parks to their audience as well. And we can put, you know, some effort into that. So I think that's a really exciting area to keep going as a thriving, you know, subcommittee, and there's lots of potential there.
So through the chair, one additional thing that I wanted to mention. And our legal advisor could probably advise us. I think it was an issue that was raised. You have a lot of committees, you have members that are in multiple subcommittees and so on and so forth, and there are potential violations of the Brown Act. You know, and so that's something else that we need to consider, particularly in terms of the number of subcommittees that we should have, and you know, and sort of avoid, you know, getting into a violation of Brown Act territory.
Perhaps what we can do is schedule a Brown Act training, either at the end of this year or early next year. Just a good refresher for everyone.
Right,
That would help avoid that situation. I think the number of committees is less concerning if everyone is familiar with what the rules are.
Right.
Is there gonna be another one of those board and commission trainings? I thought actually that was pretty cool.
We can
Brown Act was part of that,
Yeah.
part of that.
I believe that the one from last year is also available to watch.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I did try to find that, and I'm sorry, I couldn't find the link. So if you have that, perhaps. Share it out.
Are you having an in-person, last in-person I had was either 18 or 19?
We'll have to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, we can ask. Or what we can do is have
If
Peg
Mr.
or
Craig,
someone in your office that's Brown
Brown
Act, like, I don't know if you all have like a Brown Act person,
Training.
otherwise you could leave Craig could lead it.
maybe he can teach it.
Just Craig up for stuff. Back to that one.
All right, any other comments on actually any of the stuff before we open it up for public comment? I know we're almost I know Commissioner Kelly, you probably need to leave, but any other comments before we open it up?
Good start.
Awesome. Yeah, and that was the hope, right? I didn't think we were gonna be able to get to everything, but to start giving you guys a little bit more of a flavor as to what's going on and give you more context. So hopefully that we were able to do that. Great. All right, so maybe what we can do is open it up for public comment. So that'd be what, item 7? Yeah.
Yeah, so public comment for item 7, we have one hand raised. Fran, you should be able to unmute.
Hello again, Fran Pollard, El Granada. And besides fuel reduction and an escape plan and flooding, want to address the dog issue, the off-leash dogs in the little park area, community park, which was created for people, for children and families and groups to recreate in. As you can see from the pictures, when the county took over the park from Midcoast Parklands, the agreement was to keep things as they were and not to change the use. But in recent years, I see dogs, people playing with their dogs and using the parkland, the playground area as a dog park every day. Above the 2 acres above the tot lot. And if this is allowed to continue, it will deteriorate the park for people use. So even though the trial period for off-leash dogs in Quarry Park was for hikers on designated trails in the hills, there has always been people who want to play with catch with their dogs or let them run around in the open space. And that has always been in the meadow area across from the park, the 4-acre park. And the county has never discouraged that. Many people, and especially seniors, can't climb the hills and trails, so they prefer the meadow, and I'm in total agreement with that. And since there is some confusion about the meadow, it is the large green open space across from the community park on the other side of the parking lot where the pump track now exists. The 4-acre community park consists of the 2-acre tot lot and the 2-acre playground area above the tot lot. It is not a meadow, as some have called it, and I hope will not continue to call it the meadow. Before Midcoast Parklands created the community park, it was a horse corral, which was allowed to deteriorate, which is why we finally requested and were given permission from the County Board of Supervisors almost 30 years ago to create the park for people.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you, Fran.
Well, please continue.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go on to, is there any other public comment?
No, it's no other hands raised for public comment.
Great. And sorry about that. We're just running a little bit short on time here and want to make sure that we're lining up with the timelines. Okay, great. So if there's no other public comment, we'll move to item 8, items for a future agenda. I think we wanted to have a little bit more robust of a discussion, but I think for the purposes of the time that we have, I don't know if and you guys have seen the list of things that we have for a future agenda, but I don't know if there's anything in particular you guys would like to kind of add for either the November or December timeframe. December, we'll probably be doing officer elections plus a couple of other pieces, but I wasn't sure whether folks had any thoughts on other things that we could add for a future agenda. Hannah, I don't know if you had any kind of content or anything else or.
Nothing that we had planned for November. I know we had discussed the fish and game kind procedure as an item in December, but it might be something I can follow up with all of the commissioners in email and just seek input on sort of
how best to.
Why certain items were proposed, what the goal or the the desire for that discussion would be, and if any of the, and then when we meet about forming the agenda, can have a better idea of what some of those recommended agenda items were.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification, we had discussed earlier forming a committee to work on the work plan. So would that be the first item for November's agenda?
I think that sounds reasonable. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that sounds reasonable.
I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah. And also give you a little bit more time to digest after everything that you've heard, like kind of drinking from a fire hose there, but yeah, totally.
Thank you.
That's a great one. Any other?
Well, I have one thought, and I want to be mindful of time, but something that's really important to me, is trying to explore ways to be mobile around our beautiful Bay Area without using a car. I think it's just a critical thing. We want to teach our children, we want to encourage each other to do that. And so looking for ways to have like bicycle connectivity from park to park, or from one good location to another good location that might go through a park would be really, really helpful. So for example, if you have, two different good locations, you would have the ability to create a thoroughfare for people to, get from A to B without using a car and not having to be on the roads.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So I don't know what we would want to call that. It's just kind of a general concept. It's not exactly bicycle advocacy, because that's not really what I'm thinking about, but it's really just more connectivity and avoiding cars.
Exactly, a connectivity plan.
Yeah, so maybe it's already happening in some other ways. So, I don't want to step on toes if it's already in place somewhere.
There is some work going on around kind of the effort is called State of the Trails, but it looks at kind of some of the trails, not just in our county, but throughout the Santa Cruz Mountains. And there are some efforts like the Beta Sea Trail that would, do a lot of that. Perhaps what we could do is find a time to have a presentation given to the commission on kind of some of the trail efforts that are underway.
Yeah, I like that.
And then from there, kind of decide if that's something that warrants further conversation.
Okay, that'll be great. That'll be a great starting point.
Commissioner Blocker, you also maybe incentive, like looking into, like you have in, let's say my district, in my neighborhood of parks, you got San Bruno, San Andreas, you got Jennifer Serra, and you have San Bruno Mountains. Like using a bike, you can actually get from one to the other to the other.
Awesome.
Are you kind of emphasizing it? Could that even be a possibility of happening? Like you like, let's say you're on the coast and there's a few parks, county parks on the coast.
Yeah.
Using a nice mountain bike that you have, you can go without using a car or other forms of transportation, have all the time in the world that you have and ride from one park to the other, or would that be?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's many benefits. I think, there's kind of, we talk about health and the recreational benefits. We talk about getting kids off of screens and getting them moving places.
Active.
It's a beautiful concept. People might be able to commute better. We talk about Sawyer Camp Trail. That's such an important connectivity trail that has a huge impact. A lot of people are feeling it. I feel it. We use it all the time, and it's just, and I know work's being done. It's awesome that you're starting work, but just any way that we can not only preserve the connectivity and then enhance connectivity. So if we're moving around without cars, it would be a beautiful thing to focus on. I think that's one of our ideas here, is not to think necessarily of our collection of 23 parks as little oases, that are fully, immersed in concrete, but rather if there's a connectivity from our parks to other parks, I think it's just a nice concept to work towards.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else or any other thoughts? Okay. We'll open it up for public comment. Item 8.
This is a public comment for item 8. Fran, I see your hand is still raised. I don't know if this is for for future agenda items, or if it's just still up from before, but I'll give you the opportunity to unmute. Actually, did I do this? Fran, are you able to unmute? Oh, there. I think that worked now. Fran, are you able to unmute?
There we go.
Hi, did you call on me?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if your hand was still raised from the last item or if you had another comment.
It was, but I would like to just say, I hope that things get enforced, that we've requested in the past. Thank you, especially concerning the dog issue. And signs posted and enforced. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. And then we have Burnett. Burnett, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Yeah, just quickly, as I raised earlier about the increased neighborhood parking and traffic from Quarry Park, I would like to see that made an agenda item so it could be discussed and some solutions looked at. So please consider that as a future agenda item, in addition to the issue that Fran raised about the off-leash dogs in that kids area. Thank you.
Thank you, Burnett. And that's all for public comment.
All right, great. Well, that leaves only one item, which is adjournment. So if there's nothing else, I move to close this meeting. Thanks everybody for the time, and we'll see you next month.